Okay, hi guys, welcome back to the Dear Levels channel, welcome back to another review, and today we have the WGZ Blon BL-07 or Blon BL-07. This is another budget earphone. We've been having a few of these. We've got the KZ, we've got the Triple and Leah, so if you've not seen them on the channel, please go ahead and check them out or subscribe if they've not already been released yet. This is another decent earphone. It's very hard. I got a crop of maybe like 6 or 7 budget earphones in, and they're actually starting to be really good. I think these come out of the KZ factory as well, and I think that might be something to do with KZ finally taking their tuning seriously. Finally, rather than just throwing everything at the wall and hoping something catches on with the hype trains that this community is prone to. So let me just clear that up there. The box, pretty standard. I put them back in the box for you. Standard Blon style box. These are running a 10mm dynamic driver. It has the cable in the case here, and it just comes with a little carry pouch and a few sets of ear tips, which are perfectly adequate for the price point. Speaking of the price, these run about $45, so it's putting them into a very competitive space. You're going up against the Melee, a little bit more you're going to be up against the Aria, and there's other earphones that are coming out, especially from KZ as well, that are occupying that $50 space, and I think these compete just fine in it as well. It's just going to depend how you like your earphones tuned. Let's take them back out the foam and get rid of the box. So, as I said, they're running 10mm drivers on the inside. It is a very, very well made earphone. If you have a look at this here, let's take the ear tips off. It's a metal body design. It has a really nice pyramid on it coming off the top. The only real complaint I have about this finish on it is that it attracts fingerprints up there with some of the worst fingerprint magnets I've ever seen in my life. Like, you just touch this thing and it starts to look a little bit greasy. You have the bass ports top and bottom there, and you have a metal nozzle with protective grills on it. It is a slightly weighty earphone for this sort of category that comes from the metal build quality. But I would trade off a little bit of that weight for a better built earphone. And these also look like a more premium set of earphones than anything that KZ produced, for example. KZ just always feel a little bit cheap, but these Blons feel, quite nice. And Blon have been doing a good job with their design. They run the Qdc Connectors, which I'm a big fan of. Initially, it was kind of awkward to get aftermarket cables for them, but that's aftermarket cable companies now operate with Qdc. The advantage of that is that by closing over the 2-pin connectors, you're not going to get the ingress of like say sweat or something going down the terminals and basically breaking your earphones. It's nice. The cable is okay. I think it's adequate for the money. It uses metal hardware for the splitter and for the jack point. It's terminated in 3.5mm with this metal jack. It's a little bit memory resistant, but it is pretty decent quality, and it does loosen up over time as I've been using it. The mic is surprisingly really, really good. The call quality was adequate, but the build quality is nice, and it has a nice tactile little button on it. As for the sound, let's go over to the listening notes. It's slightly bass thick. That was in the sub bass. It's not a quantity thing, it's more of a sort of thicker, slower sounding bass. It's got weight to it, and it's got decent punch in the mid bass as well. But that mid bass punch does come at a more expensive earphone is going to get you a more refined sounding mid bass, which I think is important to display texture and detail. There's a lot of detail to be pulled out of bass that makes your music sound very, very good. Earphones that don't display that detail and that texture often feel like they're lacking something. People think of bass as impact and slam, but I think of bass as another area where you can hear texture and different variations in the tones. Prime example is just look at any sort of double bass or bass heavy music, jazz music with bass in it. There's a lot of texture to be had in those lower octaves. As for the overall sound is, I would say, it's sort of consumer, like above average consumer for the money. Definitely at this price point, if you're talking $45 and you're comparing it to something like a Sony, a Philips, a JVC, this walks all over them. This competes with like $100 earphones from those companies, because those companies don't spend money trying to make the sound good. They just try and move units. TRIBRID here have tried to do something. The build quality is the main selling point of this earphone, as opposed to the sound. The sound is consumer, I would say something called consumer plus, but it's definitely a fun and engaging, and it's a versatile sounding earphone that works well with a lot of different types of music. The mid-range is smooth overtones of warmth, but it's definitely not recessed. It's prominent enough that you can hear the male vocals and the female vocals pushed up in front of you. So that's really good for anybody that likes, let's say, warmer acoustic sounding songs. Male vocals especially were good on this one. Female vocals, I think there's other better options, but male vocals, stringed instruments, absolutely adequate on this. Going into the highs are crisp and clear. I would say that they are slightly V-shaped with that prominent bass, and the treble pushed a little bit. It verges sometimes on the sibilant, but it never seems to like fully tip over. It's obviously not as detailed as a more expensive earphone. It's not as tight and refined as something like an Aria, which you'll find for maybe $30 more. But it's perfectly competent, that works well with a wide variety of music. It's a very easy to listen to earphone. Soundstage is average. I wouldn't say it's anything above average. I've heard other earphones, cheaper and more expensive, that have a better soundstage, but definitely doesn't feel closed in. I just think that if you had a little bit more detail in the highs, you would create that illusion of a more engaging sounding soundstage. Imaging, detail retrieval, average, but overall for the money, when you take into account the build quality, the cable's quite nice, and the sound being very versatile and easy to listen to. These are an earphone that can be a workhorse for you, something that you use for commuting, travelling. It isolates very, very well because of the density of the housing. It's good for listening to in the library, and it's good for those people that don't want to spend a lot of money, but also who listen to a wide variety of music. So if you listen to EDM, you can listen to it with this. If you listen to some classical, you can get away with it with this. The only area that's really sort of lacking is anything that has mid-bass detail. Apart from that, for the money, can easily recommend this. That is the Blon BL-07. That's it for this review. As I say, stay tuned, because we have the Duno Titan S, the Leah, we got the KZ out for review. We've got a whole bunch of reviews that are coming out just now, and they're all going to be sort of budget focused. So if you're into budget audio, if you're into audiophile earphones, you want to see some of the big comparisons that we have coming up, welcome to the channel. Please go ahead and subscribe. It's great to have you here.